I'm very pleased to talk to Dr. Ross Pelton again. He is the natural pharmacist. He is also a clinical nutritionist, a health educator, and author of 13 books, which is amazing. In October 1999, he was named one of the top 50 most influential pharmacists in America. He is currently scientific director for Essential Formulas, which is a company that specializes in marketing of premium probiotic products. His most recent book is titled Rapamycin, mTOR, Autophagy, and Treating mTOR Syndrome. And his personal website is www.naturalpharmacist.net. And I'm sure he'll tell us about all the things that you can see when you go to that website. So thanks very much, Ross. I know that this subject is extremely important. It's said that there are a trillion microorganisms in the gut, and gut health has vast effects on the body. There is, for instance, what's called the gut-brain axis, but there are also effects on pretty much all of the organs. So thanks, Ross, and I'll leave it to you just to introduce yourself briefly, maybe how you developed this interest in prebiotics, and then I believe you're going to give us a very nice slideshow. So thanks again.
Well, thanks very much, Noor. I appreciate the invitation to be on your program today and share one of my areas of passionate interest related to health. On my introductory slide here, I'm just showing a little bit about my background for all of you viewers. I'm currently the Director of Science and Education for Essential Formulas. My initial career, I was a pharmacist. I now refer to myself as a recovering pharmacist. I'm no longer standing in drugstores counting pills. Author, health educator, and one of my great passions when it comes to health is the science and technology of anti-aging and life extension. And one of those subtopics in the anti-aging and life extension arena is the microbiome. So I've become a microbiome scientist over the past decade. And as Noor mentioned, my bio, my blog, and my website are at www.naturalpharmacist.net, our primary topic. And on this slide, I'm just reviewing the topics I want to cover today. I'm going to tell several stories. I'm really a storyteller, and that's the way I teach scientific topics, not by just throwing information at people, but by telling stories. And today I'm going to tell the story of the human gut microbiome, probiotic bacteria, postbiotic metabolites, fermentation and fermented foods, and Dr. Ohhira's Probiotics, which is the premier fermented food probiotic. And on this slide, I have images of fermentation and fermented foods, and I'll be emphasizing these topics throughout my presentation because fermentation was the first method of preserving foods centuries ago. And even today, fermentation and in the creation of fermented foods is a very important process. And fermentation takes place in the human body. So I'll be explaining how important that is for regulating our health. But basically, all these topics that I'm going to discuss today, the bottom line is I'm going to explain how these factors really are master health regulators for the health of your entire body. They influence and regulate every single organ system in your body. This little cartoon I use in a lot of my presentations, life is the only game in which the object of the game is to learn the rules.
Right.
And if I apply this little cartoon to health, it takes on a very serious meaning because the human gut microbiome is a really critical regulator of human health. And consequently, the human gut microbiome is one of the most critical rules of health that people need to learn. People need to learn and understand how to create and maintain a healthy gut microbiome. And most people, myself included, did not have good teachers and good role models when it comes to health. But along the way, if you want to have a healthy aging process and achieve what I call healthy longevity, you have to learn about some of these key fundamental rules of health. And the gut microbiome, our topic today, is one of the most critical rules of health that there is. So to start with, I'm going to take our viewers on a deep dive into the human gut microbiome so you really understand what I'm talking about when I discuss the human gut microbiome. You can see the image on the right-hand side is showing the large intestine. And it's important to realize that over 99.9% of the bacteria that reside in your intestinal tract reside in the colon. So the
Hmm.
colon is really the primary site of action when we're talking about the human gut microbiome. And it's also important to realize that over 70% of the body's immune cells reside in the gastrointestinal tract. So if you have gut problems and bacterial imbalance in your gastrointestinal tract, your immune system is the first thing that suffers. I want to make sure everybody understands this term dysbiosis. It's simply a term that refers to or relates to bacterial imbalance, primarily in the colon, in the large intestine. The cause of dysbiosis are bad bacteria. Too many bad bacteria, not enough good bacteria. And the reason bad bacteria are bad is that they are living organisms, just like your probiotic bacteria. But bad bacteria are bad because they secrete substances that are highly irritating and damaging to the lining of the gastrointestinal tract. So the symptoms of dysbiosis, if you have too many bad bacteria, gas, bloating, diarrhea, constipation, inflammation, pain. And it's important to realize that a healthy gut microbiome consists of about 85 to 90% good bacteria and only 10 to 15% potentially bad bacteria. Most bad bacteria are really not bad when they only exist in small numbers, the healthy gut microbiome being predominantly good bacteria. But things happen to upset the balance in the gut microbiome, things like taking antibiotics, or bad diets or environmental toxins and any number of other things. You end up with too many bad bacteria, not enough good bacteria, and then you have dysbiosis and a significant number of health problems can develop. So in my career over the past 10 years, where I've evolved into a microbiome scientist, I'm helping to unravel the mysteries of the microbiome. In June of 2019, I wrote a paper that was published in a medical journal, the Townsend Letter, and the title of this article was Postbiotic Metabolites, the New Frontier in Microbiome Science. This is the first time a paper ever appeared in the scientific literature with the term postbiotic metabolites in the title. So
Wow.
I'm really kind of a pioneer globally in trying to educate the world about how the gut microbiome really functions and what is the role and the function of these postbiotic metabolites. What are they? How do you get them? And what are their various functions and activities? Well, what we're learning is that the job of your probiotic bacteria is to convert components in the food you eat into these compounds we call postbiotic metabolites. And these are compounds, as I mentioned, that influence and regulate every single organ system. So postbiotic metabolites are master health regulating compounds. The latest statistics I could get, 2022, Americans spent $17.4 billion on oral probiotic supplement. And what I'm going to suggest is most of these orally ingested probiotic products really don't work the way they're advertised and promoted. And so I'm going to provide you with the reason why I don't think orally ingested probiotics really work. And I call this answer to this problem, this conundrum, the oral probiotic dilemma. And what I'm providing in the oral probiotic dilemma is the scientific explanation for why most oral probiotics don't work. There's really three parts to the oral probiotic dilemma. The first part is stomach acid. Stomach acid is designed to kill. It's anywhere from 10,000 to 100,000 times stronger acid than the acidity in the small intestine and the colon. So stomach acid is really the front line of your immune system. When you ingest bacteria and other foreign invaders into your mouth and they get into your stomach, stomach acid is designed to protect you. It's designed to kill those foreign invaders. Orally ingested probiotics are going to be decimated when they come into contact with that very caustic stomach acid. Dilemma number two is the small intestine, which is also a very hostile environment for bacteria to survive in. We secrete bile acids and pancreatic digestive enzymes which digest food. they will digest and destroy the cell membrane on bacteria if they make it through the stomach. And the third dilemma is, I think, one of the biggest sins on planet Earth. People are consuming bad diets. It's important to realize that the food for your probiotic bacteria are compounds called dietary fibers and polyphenols. If you're not familiar with the term polyphenols, they are the compounds that, in a general sense, provide color in fruits and vegetables. Scientists have identified over 8,000 polyphenols. So the structure of these compounds has been identified. And so, two unique things about dietary fibers and polyphenols. Polyphenols, most of them are massively large molecular structures, and humans don't do a very effective job of digesting and absorbing most of the polyphenols. So, a lot of them pass all the way down your digestive tract unchanged until they reach the colon. And with dietary fibers, humans do not contain the enzymes that allow us to digest dietary fibers. So these food components also pass all the way through your digestive tract, but when they reach the colon, these polyphenols and dietary fibers are the food for your probiotic bacteria. There are a number of studies that have been published documenting that from 90 to 95% of American children and adults do not meet the recommended daily allowance for daily dietary fiber ingestion. So this is telling us that almost all Americans are falling short on their consumption of dietary fibers, and this is one of the main foods that your probiotic bacteria require. The second bullet point is summarizing a number of studies that are reporting anywhere from 80 to 91% of Americans fall short in every color of phytonutrient consumption. These are the polyphenols. These two bullet points, 80 to 91% of Americans not consuming adequate amounts of polyphenols, 90 to 95% of American children and adults not consuming adequate amounts of dietary fiber. This means that almost everyone does not consume a diet that supports a healthy gut microbiome. And I'll be talking a lot more about the problems that can develop from this dietary problem that almost everybody alive today is suffering from. My next point here, there are 800 to 1,000 different species of bacteria in a healthy gut microbiome. They have different types of DNA and they require different types of food. So it's important for people to understand the importance of consuming a diversity of different types of foods to get a diversity of different types of dietary fibers and polyphenols. So again, emphasizing most Americans are lacking not only in quantity, but the diversity of these dietary fibers and polyphenols. And one of the things I tell people, it's important to realize every time you eat, you're hosting a very large party. You're feeding 100 trillion guests. It's estimated that there are about 100 trillion bacteria residing in the gastrointestinal tract, primarily in the colon. So I like to do a couple of analogies, and this was comparing Dr. Ohhira's probiotics with a manufacturing plant. In a manufacturing plant, you've got hundreds of workers, but they require thousands of parts in order to reach the ultimate goal, which is to build different types of vehicles. When your gut microbiome, it's the probiotic bacteria that are the workers, but they have to be supplied with a diverse range of the parts they need, the dietary fibers and polyphenols, so that they can produce the desired result, these postbiotic metabolites that regulate your health. So emphasizing again the importance of balance and diversity, I've got three different examples here of how balance and diversity can get upset. In the left-hand image is my automobile manufacturing plant. If you get thousands of new workers into the manufacturing plant, but they only have one skill set, like they can just put on windshield wipers or maybe they can apply paint, that really upsets the worker balance in the whole automobile manufacturing plant. Similarly, in the Amazon rainforest, if you put a million new monkeys or a million new jaguars into the Amazon rainforest, it's going to upset the whole ecosystem in the Amazon. The same thing happens in the gut microbiome. When people consume these high-dose probiotics containing tens or hundreds of billions of live bacteria per dose, they're really working against balance and diversity. And as I mentioned earlier in the oral probiotic dilemma, most of those orally ingested probiotics don't even survive through the gastric environment when they come into contact with stomach acid. Another important analogy is looking at temperature versus acidity. We all know that temperature is a critical regulator of the environment for the health of plants, animals, and humans on planet Earth. The thing that is the master regulator of the ecosystem in the gut microbiome is acidity. The acid-base balance is a critical regulator of the whole microbiome ecosystem, and the optimal acid-base balance is just weakly acidic, 6.2 to 6.8 pH range. Now, pH is a logarithmic scale, goes from 0 to 14. 7 is neutral. Anything below 7 is acidic, and so 6.2 to 6.8, just weakly acidic, just slightly below the midpoint of 7. So my question here is, how do people create and how do people maintain this weakly acidic condition in the gut microbiome, which is the optimal condition to promote the growth and proliferation of your probiotic bacteria, and it hinders or inhibits the growth of pathogens? Well, the answer is that many of the postbiotic metabolites are weakly acidic compounds. You've got short-chain fatty acid, propionic, acetic, and butyric acids, organic acid, nucleic acids, amino acids, fulvic acid. If you're eating a healthy diet, your probiotic bacteria will produce all of these different types of weakly acidic postbiotic metabolites that maintain this weakly acidic environment, which is the optimal condition for a healthy gut microbiome. So again, in the Amazon, thousands of different species of animals requiring different types of food. You've got millions of insects, thousands of birds, hundreds of species of reptiles and mammals. They all require different types of food. In the gut microbiome, thousands of species of bacteria requiring different types of food. And so it's important to understand it's food that regulates the ecosystem. If the food is not available, the animals or the bacteria in the gut microbiome can't thrive and survive. So food comes first. Food diversity allows diversity of the animals or the bacteria in the gut microbiome to develop. And in the gut microbiome, then a diversity of bacteria can produce a diversity of the postbiotic metabolites that regulate your health. Consuming high-dose probiotics does not fix a damaged microbiome ecosystem. Here now I'm introducing Dr. Ohhira's Probiotics, which I feel is the best probiotic in the world. This image is showing the 80-gallon fermentation vats in a sterile warehouse in southern Japan. They start out with 12 strains of probiotic bacteria, and they introduce a wide range of different types of Japanese fruits and vegetables and mushrooms and seaweeds, which provide the diverse range of dietary fibers and polyphenols that allow the bacteria to digest these food products and produce the postbiotic metabolites. It's a 3-year fermentation process that results in the production of over 500 of these postbiotic metabolites. So this is the real power of Dr. Ohhira's Probiotics. It's not that Dr. Ohhira's Probiotics is delivering high doses of probiotic bacteria. It's the #1 product in the world for the direct delivery of these postbiotic metabolites. On this slide, I'm showing an image of the 10,000-gallon anaerobic fermentation vats that are used in the production of the 5-year fermentation process product, Dr. Ohhira's professional brand. The original brand is 3 years fermentation. That's sold in health food and vitamin stores throughout the country. The professional brand is limited to healthcare professionals, but also can be purchased online on Amazon.com. Little story about Dr. Ohhira, who he was and how he got into creating this product, Dr. Ohhira's probiotic. Dr. Ohhira was originally a Buddhist monk. He lived in the Buddhist temple for a number of years when he was younger. And then when he got a little older, he left the temple and enrolled in university and graduated with a degree in agriculture. Upon graduation, he started a business as a landscape architect, and he became internationally famous. In 1976, the country of Malaysia invited Dr. Ohhira to come and design what they called a freedom park for one of the capital cities in one of the states of Malaysia. Ohhira accepted that consulting contract, and 4 years later, in 1980, Malaysia invited him back to the grand opening ceremony. At the grand opening ceremony, Dr. Ohhira ingested some bad food. He might have also had a little too much to drink. He got violently ill. He was literally writhing on the ground, nausea and vomiting. There happened to be a shaman attending the grand opening ceremonies. He saw Dr. Ohhira in obvious distress. He knelt down, cradled Dr. Ohhira's head in his lap, reached into his leather satchel, pulled out a little jar, and started spoon feeding Dr. Ohhira some black, syrupy, pasty stuff.
Right.
And Ohhira was amazed at how quickly he recovered. So Ohhira's a inquisitive man. He asks some questions. He finds out that this black, syrupy stuff that the shaman administered to him was made from locally fermented Malaysian fruits and vegetables. So this is how Dr. Ohhira initially got introduced to the concept of fermentation. He took samples of this stuff back to Japan, played around with it for a couple of years, got frustrated because he didn't have the scientific background to study it the way he wanted to. So at age 49, Dr. Ohhira immediately walked away from his globally successful career as a landscape architect and went back to the university and got a PhD in microbiology. And then it took him 10 years to develop this multi-year fermentation process known as Dr. Ohhira's probiotics. So that's a little background on how this all happened. And I'm always fascinated by synchronicity. If Dr. Ohhira hadn't been offered this job in Malaysia, if he hadn't gone back to the grand opening ceremony, if he hadn't got sick, if there hadn't been a shaman present when he was sick, none of this would have happened. So that's the story of Dr. Ohhira and how he created Dr. Ohhira's probiotics. On this slide, I'm comparing Dr. Ohhira's 3-year natural fermentation process with the fermentation that naturally takes place in the human colon. It takes food anywhere from 24 to 72 hours to pass through the colon. So that's the amount of time that the bacteria in your colon have to break down the food that you've eaten and produce the postbiotic metabolite, 24 to 72 hours. In Dr. Ohhira's 3-year fermentation process, the bacteria have 26,280 hours to break down all the components in those foods and end up producing over 500 of these postbiotic metabolites. I regularly emphasize that there's 2 pieces to the puzzle. Probiotic bacteria are extremely important for your health, but you have to learn how to feed your probiotic bacteria well, or they won't thrive and survive. And a healthy diet for your probiotic bacteria consists of plant-based foods that will provide a diversity of dietary fibers and polyphenols. This slide I'm showing the wide range of Japanese fruits and vegetables, mushrooms and seaweeds that are used in the production of Dr. Ohhira's probiotics. So you can see there's a diversity of different types of foods, providing a wide diversity of dietary fibers and polyphenols, and a number of bacteria that are the starter strains that create this end product, Dr. Ohhira's probiotics, with over 500 postbiotic metabolites. On this slide, I'm just showing our viewers a link to my YouTube video. I've done an 8-minute YouTube video titled Ross's Salad Buzz. Anybody can access by just doing a Google search for Ross Salad Buzz. You can see on the left-hand column, I've got 16 different types of fiber and polyphenol-rich foods in my salad buzz. And One of the secrets to this process is after I prepare my salad buzz in the big bowl like I'm showing in this image, squeeze a lemon and toss your salad buzz with the lemon because lemon juice has vitamin C, which is an antioxidant. So my salad buzz will stay fresh in the refrigerator for up to a week. Now, this is also a tremendous time saver because when I prepare the salad most evenings for myself and my wife, part of our evening meal, I go to the refrigerator, I pull out my bag of lettuce, I pull out my Tupperware with my salad buzz. I've got two salad bowls on the counter, a handful of lettuce, a handful of salad buzz. It takes just a couple of minutes to make salad for supper, and then I'll put some wild caught salmon or some garbanzo beans for a source of protein. So it's a tremendous time saver, and it's also the best way to support a healthy gut microbiome with this wide diversity of different types of vegetables in the salad buzz. And I want to make a point, the 16 bullet points I have listed here, that's not set in stone. That can change sometimes throughout the year as different foods become available at different seasons throughout the year. Just gives people the concept of getting a wide diversity of vegetables in your salad buzz. On this slide, I'm going to be talking about the activity of various postbiotic metabolites. You can see in the top image is somebody with a highly inflamed colon versus a healthy colon down below. So many of the postbiotic metabolites have anti-inflammatory activity, and the person with that highly inflamed colon in the top image definitely needs anti-inflammatory activity. That inflammation is caused by bacterial imbalance. Too many bad bacteria are causing the inflammation. Many of the postbiotic metabolites are called antimicrobial peptides. They are actually naturally produced antibiotics that your probiotic bacteria are supposed to be able to produce. They will kill pathogens or inhibit the growth of pathogens. So that's another important part of your immune system, the natural antibiotics that your probiotic bacteria produce. Some of the postbiotic metabolites, especially a short chain fatty acid called butyrate, are the primary energy source to renew these inflamed epithelial cells in the lining of the GI tract. Many people don't realize that the cells that line the gastrointestinal tract have the highest rate of turnover of any cells in the entire human body. You make an entirely new lining to your gastrointestinal tract every 5 to 7 days. And it takes a tremendous amount of energy to continually be reproducing and renewing these gastrointestinal epithelial cells. And that energy comes from primarily postbiotic metabolites, especially butyrate. Scientists estimate that about 10% of a human's daily energy requirements are the energy that goes into recreating the healthy epithelial cells on a renewing basis. I talked about the acid-base balance. You also aid in healing the lining of the gastrointestinal tract if it's damaged, regulating the immune system, detoxifying toxins. The fastest way to improve intestinal symptoms quickly is increase production of these postbiotic metabolites or take them orally. So I propose that we really need to rethink this concept of essential nutrients. We talk about vitamins and minerals and essential fatty acids and essential amino acids, but these postbiotic metabolites are essential nutrients that are created by your probiotic bacteria. They have essential roles in regulating your health. So we need to start to understand how important these postbiotic metabolites are. On this slide, I'm drawing attention to a damaged ecosystem. The left-hand image is a damaged, inflamed gastrointestinal tract, and in the other two images, I'm showing a damaged Amazon rainforest ecosystem. And the point I want to make here is that it's not enough to just put the inhabitants of an ecosystem back into a damaged ecosystem. In the Amazon rainforest example, if you put the birds, the bees, the butterflies, the snakes, the monkeys back into this damaged Amazon ecosystem, they're not going to cause the trees to regrow. And those animals being put back into a damaged ecosystem, the animals won't survive. It's the same with your gut microbiome. If you have dysbiosis and intestinal imbalance and inflammation, it's not enough to just put high dose probiotics in. They won't fix the system. You have to get these postbiotic metabolites in to repair the damaged ecosystem in the gut microbiome. And that's what Dr. Ohhira's Probiotics does so efficiently by supplying over 500 postbiotic metabolites in every dose. On this slide, I'm just on the left-hand side showing that if you take probiotic bacteria orally, and if they survive transit through the harsh acid environment in the stomach, then they have to locate dietary fibers and polyphenols when they arrive in the colon, and then start the process of fermenting them and converting them into the postbiotic metabolite. That all takes time. On the right-hand column, I'm showing that when you ingest Dr. Ohhira's probiotics with over 500 postbiotic metabolites, you immediately start to get anti-inflammatory activity, suppress the growth of pathogens, rebalance the acid-base level, accelerate the growth of healthy new epithelial cells, improve detoxification, support a healthy immune system. All these things start to happen almost immediately when you start taking Dr. Ohhira's probiotics. Dr. Emmer Mayer is a very famous MD gastroenterologist and a microbiome scientist. I made a slide out of a comment that he made in his book. Dr. Mayer said, taking the popular and highly advertised shortcut of popping a daily supplement pill containing billions of colony-forming units will not do the job. And so it's not just my opinion here because I'm promoting Dr. Ohhira's Probiotics. Here's one of the top, most respected microbiome scientists in the world making the statement that these high-dose probiotics don't do the job. Here's different categories of postbiotic metabolites. Different strains of bacteria can produce the whole range of B vitamins, B1, B2, B3, B6, B12, folic acid, vitamin K. They can produce some of the essential amino acids, tryptophan, tyrosine, phenylalanine. We used to think that we got all of our nutrition from the food we eat. Now we're starting to understand that different strains of our probiotic bacteria are capable of producing some of our essential nutrients. I mentioned the short-chain fatty acids, immune system regulating compounds, these natural antibiotics, the antimicrobial peptides that help to regulate your immune system and suppress pathogens. Some of the key neurotransmitters are made by different strains of probiotics. GABA is the primary calming neurotransmitter in our system. Serotonin, there's a lot written about serotonin and its relationship to depression. When people have low levels of serotonin, have a whole class of drugs called the serotonin reuptake inhibitors that are supposed to boost people's serotonin levels. But there's a lot of side effects with those drugs that boost serotonin levels. Over 90% of the serotonin produced in our body is produced in the gut. And then there's gut-brain communication, which helps to balance your moods and your emotions. So the gut is helping to regulate your brain and your moods and your emotions, as well as regulating your gut. Some of the postbiotic metabolites are antioxidants, cell signaling compounds. This is a whole new area of science that's continually advancing and being better understood. But these are some of the main categories of postbiotic metabolites. I'm going to quickly go through a couple of studies that have been conducted on Dr. Ohhira's probiotics. This study was done with vitamin C knockout mice. Almost all animals can make their own vitamin C. Humans are one of the few mammals that cannot make our own vitamin C. But in this slide, I'm showing that normal mice who are capable of making their own vitamin C live an average of 24 months. Scientists created the vitamin C knockout mice where they knocked out the gene that's responsible for producing vitamin C. So in the vitamin C knockout mice, they cannot produce their own vitamin C, which of course is a very important antioxidant. These mice age very fast. Instead of living a 24-month lifetime, they start to develop age-related diseases at a very young age, and they only live an average of 6 months. So huge difference between normal mice and the vitamin C knockout mice. Here's a study that was done with normal mice, comparing them to the vitamin C knockout mice, and then a third group was the vitamin C knockout mice that were administered Dr. Ohhira's probiotic. And when the vitamin C knockout mice were administered Dr. Ohhira's probiotics, they were almost totally protected from accelerated aging. Where you can see in the middle column, vitamin C knockout mice have a very deranged microbiome. They have a significant decline in the production of good, beneficial postbiotic metabolites and a severe elevation of bad compounds that are secreted by the bad bacteria. And in the vitamin C knockout mice, tremendous decline in their ability to produce energy. ATP is our universal supply of energy in every cell in your body. In the right-hand column, the vitamin C knockout mice administered Dr. Ohhira's probiotics, microbiome's almost unchanged, their metabolite production is almost the same, and the vitamin C knockout mice getting Dr. Ohhira's probiotics were actually producing higher levels of energy than the normal mice. So this is an incredible statement about the protective value of Dr. Ohhira's probiotics. Constipation is a really big, predominant health problem in America. 20% of American adults are reported to have chronic constipation. About a third of the elderly, 65 years old and older, have chronic constipation. This is a study that was done in female college students that have a long history of constipation, and the control group was age-maxed women with no history of constipation, normal bowel movement. These women took either the placebo or 3 capsules of Dr. Ohhira's probiotics daily for 2 weeks, and at the end of the study, all of the women who had a long history of constipation were having normal bowel movement. So I want to emphasize, many people take Dr. Ohhira's probiotics when they have gut problems and diarrhea, but here you can see it's also effective for people that have constipation. So Dr. Ohhira's is really an adaptogen. It normalizes bowel function. So it will be helpful for people that have either diarrhea or constipation. There's the reference for that study. In this study, elite athletes, runners on a male track team, were given Dr. Ohhira's. They first did an intense run for baseline measurements. Then they took 3 capsules of Dr. Ohhira's daily for 3 weeks. Then they did a follow-up intense run. And the results here, they got an 8.4% increase in hemoglobin. Now, in professional sports, it's illegal to take drugs, it's called doping, to increase your hemoglobin levels. But here, Dr. Ohhira's is a natural, safe way to increase hemoglobin levels. Hemoglobin carries oxygen to all your cells and tissues, so you're increasing the oxygen level in all your cells and tissues. VO2 max is lung function. These runners had a significant increase in their lung function. The lactate threshold was increased. If you exercise intensely, lactic acid builds up in your muscles. It's very painful, and you have to stop the intense exercise. By increasing the lactate threshold, these athletes could intensely exercise for longer periods of time, and they improved their cardiac function. Their heart was functioning better. So all of these improvements happened in these well-trained athletes, but everybody that takes Dr. Ohhira's probiotics is going to improve their gut function and get some level of these improvements in their system. This is a study done on bone density, a 2-year study, age limit between 20 and 60 years of age, and the participants took anywhere from 3 to 10 capsules a day for 2 years. This is a study done in Japan, and the reason there was such a difference in the dosage, anywhere from 3 to 10 capsules a day, some Japanese are very tiny, petite people, and others are very large individuals like sumo wrestlers. So the dosage was based on people's size and weight, but you can see the results. All the men and the women gained significant increases in their bone mineral content and their bone mineral density. Now, this was an observational study. The scientists didn't give any explanation for why or how these beneficial changes occurred in bone density, but I have my theory. Many of the postbiotic metabolites are weakly acidic, and you have to have a weakly acidic condition in your gastrointestinal tract to absorb minerals like calcium and magnesium, which are critical for bone metabolism. Also, probiotic bacteria manufacture a number of B vitamins that are also involved in bone metabolism. So that's my theory on why people get an improvement in their bone mineral density when they're taking Dr. Ohhira's. It's about improving the function of your gut. Enterococcus faecalis TH10 is a very unique strain of probiotic bacteria that Dr. Ohhira himself discovered. He discovered this in the Malaysian fermented food tempeh. This is one of the strongest natural antibiotics known, and it's a strain of probiotic bacteria. Cell culture studies have shown that Enterococcus faecalis TH10, we just call it TH10 for simplicity, TH10 has been shown to be active against Candida, E. coli, which is the main cause of food poisoning, H. pylori, one of the strains of anthrax, MRSA, which is a huge health problem, methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus. And scientists and Dr. O'Hara's team studied this strain of bacteria extensively and actually wrote a book about it because this is such an important strain of bacteria. They needed to understand how it works and why it works, and they discovered its power comes from the production of a postbiotic metabolite called phenolactic acid. And so in the next slide, these are electron micrographic images magnified 1,500 times, showing from the top image down to the bottom image when bacteria are exposed to a very weak 1% solution of this phenolactic acid produced by TH10. It totally destroys the cell membrane of the pathological bacteria, but it does not harm your good probiotic bacteria. This is called the anti-fatigue study, anti-fatigue effect of OMX. In Japan, the product that Dr. O'Hara created is named OMX, which stands for O'Hara Mountain Extract. That's the name of the product that Dr. O'Hara created. It's still sold in Japan under that name. So I'm just highlighting here that OMX is really Dr. O'Hara's probiotics, and this was a study on healthy people, and it's called the anti-fatigue study, receiving lactic acid bacteria and bifidobacteria, randomized, placebo-controlled, double-blind study. So fatigue was measured in these healthy participants. And I want to emphasize that the only healthy people could be enrolled in this study. No high blood pressure, no obesity, no metabolic syndrome, no health problems whatsoever. And fatigue was measured on 2 rating scales. The left-hand image is called the visual analog scale, just a horizontal line. And once a week for 12 weeks, people would just mark an X on the line, indicating their subjective feeling of how much fatigue they were experiencing, either high levels of fatigue or low levels of fatigue. The right-hand image is showing the chronic fatigue scale, 11 different questions asked once a week for 12 weeks. This is a 12-week study. And you can see both of these images, tremendous reductions in fatigue in people taking Dr. O'Hara's probiotics in a double-blind, placebo-controlled trial. So I want to emphasize, these were just totally healthy people. People with health problems are going to get a much more noticeable decrease in fatigue and noticeably increase their strength, their stamina, their energy level. This is one of the most noticeable effects of taking Dr. O'Hara's probiotics. A lot of people ask me for advice on what to do when they're taking antibiotics or after they finish a course of antibiotics. Many people take oral probiotics. If you remember my discussion of the oral probiotic dilemma, I don't think taking high-dose oral probiotic is very effective. But it is really critical to take steps to be proactive at trying to rebuild a healthy gut microbiome. And the 2 best recommendations on how to do that are to consume a plant-based diet that provides a diversity of dietary fibers and polyphenols, and take Dr. O'Hara's probiotics and directly ingest this over 500 postbiotic metabolites. Is the fastest way to rebuild and reset the gut microbiome ecosystem. People ask, what age can people start taking Dr. O'Hara's probiotics? Children can take Dr. O'Hara's when they are comfortably able to swallow one of the capsules. And for infants, especially if an infant is born with a C-section delivery and doesn't get exposed to the mother's vaginal bacteria, those infants definitely need help developing a gut microbiome. I recommend that mothers take Dr. O'Hara's probiotics, bite the capsule, squeeze the paste out onto your fingertips, and wipe it around the inside of your infant's mouth so that that will accelerate the infant's ability to build a healthy gut microbiome. A number of dentists are recommending that people bite a capsule of Dr. O'Hara's at bedtime, squeeze the contents out in your mouth, swish it around in your mouth for about 20 seconds before swallowing. It will support a healthy oral microbiome. And on the right-hand image, you see somebody with a highly inflamed tooth, an abscess. We've got a number of anecdotal reports where people take a capsule of Dr. O'Hara's, bite it out, and smear the paste directly on this inflamed tooth infection. One of our employees had a friend that reported this, where this massive tooth infection inflammation reared up on a Friday afternoon, couldn't get in to see the dentist because it was a holiday weekend, 3-day weekend, Kathy recommended that she bite the hot Dr. Ohhira's capsule and start rubbing the paste on it. This infection cleared up in 3 days. She never had to go to the dentist. So an increasing number of anecdotal reports are telling us that direct application of these postbiotic metabolites in Dr. Ohhira's, the weakly acidic compounds that are suppressing acid growth, the antimicrobial peptides that actually kill pathogens, these things really help to suppress bacterial growth. So there's a real paradigm shift from probiotics to postbiotic metabolites, and I want to emphasize a couple studies here in my closing comments. This study, published in 2022, the author stated there is increasing evidence that the health benefits associated with probiotics are typically derived from the metabolites and secreted compounds produced by the live microbes rather than solely the presence of the live microbes themselves. So again, it's not just my opinion. Here's somebody in a key scientific journal that's saying it's the postbiotic metabolites that are producing the health benefits, not the probiotic bacteria themselves. In 2016, Cleveland Clinic, which is one of the top hospitals in the world, for quite a few years, Cleveland Clinic has been ranked the #1 cardiovascular clinic in the United States. And in 2016, Cleveland Clinic assembled a panel of 100 top scientists and physicians and gave them the job of researching the medical literature, looking for medical innovations most likely to be game changers in the near future. They identified over 200 medical innovations that could be game changers. They narrowed them down to the most important top 10, held a huge conference with over 500 journalists and medical people attending. And they started at number 10, and when they got to number 1, the number 1 game changer, using the gut microbiome to prevent, diagnose, and treat disease. So you can see this is really the cutting edge of medicine and the cutting edge of natural health care. It is not possible to overestimate the importance of creating and maintaining a healthy gut microbiome. Another important study with a comment that I want to emphasize. This author emphasized in her conclusion, it is now clear that the depletion of microbial metabolites beneficial to host health is associated with a rapid rise in non-communicable chronic diseases. So all these age-related chronic diseases are all being associated with gut dysbiosis, bacterial imbalance, and underproduction of these postbiotic metabolites. So Dr. Ohhira's is really a full microbiome system with probiotics, prebiotics, and postbiotic metabolites. And the name's a little confusing, Dr. Ohhira's Probiotics, because we're not advertising delivery of billions and billions of bacteria. There are some probiotic bacteria in the final capsule, after the final product is encapsulated, some probiotic bacteria from the original process. There are some of the prebiotic foods still in the final preparation. So the bacteria in the capsules have their own food supply. But most importantly, the vast majority of every capsule of Dr. Ohhira's Probiotics are the over 500 postbiotic metabolites. So here's an image of the 2 different products. The original formula is, that's a 3-year original fermentation formula, and the professional version is a 5-year professional fermentation formula. 2 capsules daily is the recommended dose. No refrigeration is required. These bacteria learn to thrive and survive at room temperature. You can put them in your suitcase and travel with them. They're user-friendly. They can be taken anytime, full stomach, empty stomach, morning, noon, or night. And in closing, I want to just summarize some of the key benefits for people that start taking Dr. Ohhira's probiotic. You'll get a healthier gut microbiome. You'll likely experience more energy, decrease in fatigue, improved intestinal function. This is one of the main things that so many people report. They have better elimination, more frequent bowel movements, more strength, more stamina, more endurance, stronger immune system, helps reestablish this healthy, slightly acidic intestinal acid condition in the GI tract, active against a wide range of pathogens. So we like to encourage people who have not taken Dr. Ohhira's before to do what we call the Dr. Ohhira's Reset Challenge. And this involves buying a 30-count box of Dr. Ohhira's probiotics, doubling the dose. Remember, the recommended dose is 2 capsules daily. So for the Dr. Ohhira's Reset Challenge, you would take 2 capsules twice a day for 1 week and delivering over 500 postbiotic metabolites, many people actively experience the Dr. Ohhira's advantage. They can feel beneficial things happening in their body. So that's my story. I hope you've gained some insight into how probiotic bacteria function, their job to produce postbiotic metabolites, and the fact that Dr. Ohhira's Probiotics is probably the best product in the world to quickly establish beneficial changes in the gut microbiome and help people create and maintain a healthy gut. So thanks for your time and your interest.
Well, thanks, Dr. Pelton. That was excellent review of a very important subject. And as we've said, gut health is getting a lot of attention, and we now realize that has a lot of effects on all parts of the body. You'll hear about the gut-brain axis, the gut bone axis, and you pretty much said it connects with every organ. Just a quick couple of questions before we finish. So, for people that don't know this subject, just to finish off, simply could you tell us what is a prebiotic, what's a postbiotic, what's the difference, and how they work?
Sure.
The other
Yeah.
thing I want to say is that with all of these supplements, it's very important to get high quality. There's a lot of products out there, some of them excellent, some of them very good. What you have described with Dr. Ashira's probiotic is, I mean, how distinctive it is in terms of its preparation. So yeah, we'll just finish up with that, Ross.
Yeah. So there's really three terms that kind of need to be identified and defined: probiotics, prebiotics, and postbiotics.
Right.
So probiotics are the live bacteria that reside primarily in your colon. Over 99.9% of the bacteria in the human gastrointestinal tract reside in your colon. So that's where most of these bacteria live and reside. That's their housing development, so to speak. And prebiotics are the foods that are required by your probiotic bacteria. We talk about macronutrients, fats, proteins, and carbohydrates. Well, it turns out the food for your probiotic bacteria are specifically dietary fibers and compounds called polyphenols. And these compounds primarily exist in fruits and vegetables, plant-based foods. And when you consume a diversity of these plant-based foods in your diet and are supplying your innate probiotic bacteria with a wide range of dietary fibers and polyphenols, the bacteria will utilize these compounds and break them down to produce these postbiotic metabolites. So the postbiotic metabolites are the compounds that your probiotic bacteria produce if you're feeding them well. And unfortunately, most people alive today are not consuming a diverse range of dietary fibers and polyphenols. One of the studies I presented in one of the slides documents that from 90 to 95% of Americans do not consume adequate amounts of dietary fibers, and almost an equal amount of people are not consuming adequate amounts of phytonutrients and the polyphenols. So most people do not have a healthy gut microbiome, and consequently, people have health problems associated with bacterial imbalance and dysbiosis. And one of the things I harp a lot about is the fact that just putting the inhabitants back into a damaged ecosystem doesn't fix the problem. So whether it's an Amazon rainforest that's been clear cut by logging, or whether it's your damaged gut microbiome because you've got bacterial imbalance and inflammation and so forth, just putting the inhabitants back into the ecosystem doesn't fix the problem. You have to fix the whole ecosystem. And because most people are not consuming the type of diet that allows their bacteria to produce the postbiotic metabolites, just taking probiotic bacteria is not going to do the job. I mentioned earlier in my presentation that gastric acid, your stomach acid, is anywhere from 10,000 to 100,000 times stronger acid than the acidity in the small intestine and colon. So stomach acid kills orally ingested probiotics. But when you orally ingest postbiotic metabolites, these are not live organisms like your probiotic bacteria. So they don't get killed. They can survive transit through the stomach acid, arrive in the colon, and start to re-ingest the whole microbiome ecosystem so that your innate probiotic bacteria can start to thrive and survive and produce postbiotic metabolite. But there's two pieces of the puzzle: healthy diet and postbiotic metabolites. And so you need to really focus on increasing your consumption of these plant-based foods along with taking Dr. Ohhira's probiotic to have an optimally healthy gut microbiome.
Perfect. Yes. Well, I was also going to ask you, people have a lot of interest in supplements, and I was going to ask you what supplements you take routinely. I'll tell you what I take. I've got a whole bunch here. So I take fish oil, resveratrol, vitamin D. Most people in the States are vitamin D deficient. Essential acids, rapamycin, which needs some specialized knowledge, and I'd refer the listeners to your lecture. It's supposed to be prescribed. The dosing has to be done very carefully once a week, but I prefer you back to the talk on rapamycin, and I also do metformin, so there's probably a few others there. Take coenzyme Q, magnesium. Anyway, that's what I take. I've heard people say, I don't take any supplements because the science isn't there. But what do you do? Because you look very fit and healthy.
Tremendous science, I think, supporting the importance of taking some targeted nutritional supplements. I think one of the issues is that factory farming globally has really not is not producing healthy food anymore. And when you don't have crop rotation anymore, you lose the biodiversity in the farming environment, and then pesticides invade, and they spray it with pesticides and insecticides, and so there's a huge, huge difference in the nutritional content between organically grown food and commercially grown food in big agriculture industry type farming operations. So I do take nutritional supplements. I take a good, well-balanced multivitamin, multimineral supplement. I take extra magnesium, many of the same things you take. I take extra vitamin C every day. I take fish oil, incredibly important.
Yeah.
I take coenzyme Q10. However, coenzyme Q10 products are horribly absorbed. They only have 1 or 2% absorption. There's a product out of Denmark that I have a great deal of confidence in that has crystal-free coenzyme Q10. Coenzyme Q10's melting point is 10 degrees higher than body temperature. So most products crystallize, and we cannot absorb clumps of CoQ10. It has to be single molecules in solution. PharmaNord is the name of the company. They have a crystal-free coenzyme Q10. It stays in solution, gets much higher blood levels. So that's my preferred source of coenzyme Q10, and I can send a link to you and some information about that for your viewers and listeners. I take ascorbyl palmitate, which is the mixed tocotrienols. I take rapamycin, of course. I take selenium. I take alpha lipoic acid, alpha ketoglutarate, take a senolytic activator, take a little guarana for a little energy sometimes. Those are my key ones. That a little NAD plus, another good one.
Yeah, I do that too.
And
Yeah.
also one of the most important ones, Dr. Ohhira's
Of
probiotics.
course. Yeah, yeah.
And one
Quercetin.
other one that
Yeah.
I want to emphasize here, I wrote a paper titled The Glutathione Theory of Aging, and talks about how important glutathione levels are and how to boost your glutathione levels. And I think we'll do an episode later on the topic of glutathione. And my company has a line of products that we import from Europe. We have the sole rights to import and market these Reg Active products in the United States. It's REG apostrophe ACTIV. And these products contain a very unique strain of probiotic bacteria that synthesizes glutathione.
Mhm.
So that's the uniqueness of that product.
Yeah. I've got just a couple. I didn't mean to get too much in supplements, but quercetin, do you use that? QUE?
I don't take quercetin. I don't take resveratrol. There's some pretty good research on them, but they're not well absorbed. But there's some newer formulations that have better absorption characteristics.
Yeah. I've got bromelain.
Yeah,
And
bromelain, it's
yeah.
good product.
How about, I've seen a lot of interest on spermidine. Have you got any thoughts about that?
I've seen that also, but I have not taken the time to dive into it and study it, so I don't have an opinion on that.
Yeah. One other that I use is urolithin. I haven't dived into it yet either. I kind of I'm interested in that. So we'll see. Any thoughts about that?
And no, I know there's some research on it. There's another one I really haven't taken time to dive into and research.
Anyway, thanks very much.
Yeah,
Thanks
you
for
bet.
the talk, and that was excellent. Thank you.